And now that we're getting data from an external API and saving it to our Redux store, we want to connect our components to the Redux store and display this data on the screen. So first, to do this, we'll return to our components app and then create a new file in here called app.js. Copy the content from index.js into app.js. Now, inside index, clear what's there, and we're going to use this file to connect our component. So this would be the container component. So what we do is import connect from React Redux. We import actions from our story actions, and we'll import app from our app component. And the connect function will take two arguments, a map state to props and a map dispatch to props. And both of these functions will return objects, which it will then pass the values as props to our component. So the map state to props will take state as the parameter, and then we'll return the stories as a prop, which is our list of stories, the current page, which we'll later use for pagination, the list of story IDs, and then an is fetching flag, so we can indicate when we are loading new stories. And then the map dispatch to props function is kind of a special function in that it will be used to trigger new actions inside of our component. So it's a way for our components to talk to the Redux store. And this function takes dispatch as the argument, and we return an object of functions. And for now, we'll just have fetch stories first page, which we will dispatch the action to fetch story IDs. And when we have the fetch story IDs function, recall that we are fetching the story IDs, and then we're also going to fetch the first page of stories, since we'll always want to do these in unison. So we're always going to be loading that first page. And then now we can connect these, map state to props, and map dispatch to props, where we pass to the app. And once again, state is passing your state as prop, so using the data in your function. Dispatch is creating special functions that will allow you to talk to your Redux store. Now inside app, first let's just get our stories from the props so we can see those. Then also we'll want to make sure we're calling this function to load the first page. And to do this, you'll want to do it in the component did mount. This is almost always what you'll want to be doing when you're calling a fetch request on page load. I'll say this.props.fetch first, just copy and paste that, fetch stories first page. We'll pass the stories to our list. And then previously we just put one item on the screen. What we'll do now is map over these. And when you use a map, it creates an array, and we'll have components in this array, and React will load these components in the array as siblings on the DOM. So we'll have the story. We'll return a list item. And then when you have an array, you always want a key, because React uses this key as a unique ID to identify which specific sibling it's talking about, so it makes re-rendering much quicker. Let's take a look. Story typo in our here. All right, compiled successfully. And we see that we did get 20 items on the DOM, and now we need to use the actual data for these stories. So return to our list item component. Now we want to remove all this hard-coded data, so let's see what we can expect from our Hacker News API. Find the item. And here we go. We'll want the author, the ID, the time, URL, score, and title. And also we'll use the kids to display the number of comments. So return to our code. We'll have by kids and just initialize it to an empty array in case there aren't any. Score, URL, title, ID, type, and time. Now, one thing to notice is that the time will be a timestamp. It's not going to be the actual time ago, which is what we'll want to display. So we'll need to calculate the time now since this timestamp occurred. So to do that, we will add the time ago package, yarn add time ago.js. And then also it doesn't give us on our Hacker News clone, we want to display this host name. And it doesn't pass this either, so we'll need to extract this from the URL. So to do this, we'll add the URL package. And then we'll use these inside of our component. So first import time ago from timeago.js. And we'll create some helper functions to calculate these values. So I will copy these from the source code just to save a little time. Source utils. And one will be to get the article link. So if the article is an external source, meaning just something somebody's posted, it will use the URL. But if it's an internal posting like Ask Hacker News or any discussion, you will actually just go to the item ID. So let's create a util to get that link. We'll call this get article link. And then we'll also use one to get the domain. We'll call this get site hostname. All right, now return to your list item component. We will import get site hostname that we just created from utils get site hostname. And then we'll import get article link, and then some constants that we created, one for the Hacker News user and one for the Hacker News item, from utils get article link. Okay, now inside of our function, we'll call this the site, where we get site hostname of the URL. Otherwise, if it doesn't return anything, we know it will be news.ycombinator.com. We'll get the link, which we'll just get from get article link helper function, which takes the URL and the ID, and will return the external or internal link. We'll get the comment URL, which is just the Hacker News item URL followed by the ID. And then we'll get the URL for the user, which is the Hacker News user. Bye. Okay, so now we can replace our hard-coded data. We'll add title here, the site next to it, the score, points by the user, which goes into the by. The number of comments is just kids.length. And then now we want the time since the posting. So we need to initialize our time ago up here. Say const time ago. And then the time will be time ago. And you can see in React, super easy to execute JavaScript when you put them in these brackets. Time ago.format. We'll pass in our time, which is in seconds. This expects milliseconds in the new date. And then the time ago expects an ISO string, so we'll run the to ISO string. And then that should get our time. Now we want to set our links. The external link will take an href to link. We'll say our rel is link rel, the constant we created earlier, and the target is blank. Blank meaning it will open in a new tab instead of in the tab they're currently on. Replace the comment link with user URL. This is the user. We can click into their profile, and then the comments just be comment URL, and then we can click into the comments. Let's take a look at our app now. Let's restart it since we installed dependencies. Give it just 1 second to compile. So compiling, the first one just takes a little bit of time, and it's done. And there we go. We have dynamic stories. So we have, at this point, the first 20 top stories from the Hacker News feed. And then next up, we'll add some infinite scrolling and pagination techniques.